The Things We Didn't Know is the inaugural winner of the Books Like Us contest, celebrating underrepresented groups and their authors. So let's talk about the things we didn't know, and then you'll know. Hi, I'm Amanda, and this is Spineless Books, your one-stop shop for all things audiobook. So let's just clear something up right off the bat. Elba Iris Pérez is not Idris Elba. I kept thinking maybe she was, but somehow she's not. She's not nearly as attractive as he is. But she is a self-proclaimed historian, theater teacher, and author of the inaugural Books Like Us contest winner, The Things We Didn't Know. Her book, The Things We Didn't Know, follows Andrea, a young girl who grows up between Puerto Rico and a Massachusetts factory town. Now, culturally, things are very different in the two places, but her family values, specifically her father's, are the same no matter where she goes. It's really the story of family and cultural expectations in the 1950s and 60s, and while the author doesn't use this term, I will use the term code switching. It's about the code switching that Andrea and her brother Pablo have to do as they go between Puerto Rico and Massachusetts, and the expectations of their family in the two different places in contrast to the cultures that they are living in. The book is written from a child's perspective, so as a result, it doesn't go into great depth into analysis of what's going on because it's from a child's perspective. So as an adult reader, you have to sort of suss out what's going on in a couple of ways. For example, there is a character in the book who is part of the LGBTQ community. Now, in the story, she is not living in a time where she is widely accepted. However, one of the beautiful parts of this book is that the children just see her for who she is. So they love Machi, and they don't really care. And that is kind of wonderful because you're actually not seeing the societal expectations of this person. You're seeing a child's perspective of this person. And at a time when she wouldn't have been widely accepted, they just love her. Pérez writes with great detail about a very specific time and a very specific place. Now, she describes this book as historical fiction. Personally, I would say it's more autofiction, because the truth is, she lived there in this time and place. This is her upbringing. There are, of course, details that are different, but having heard her interviewed, the details that are similar are pretty monstrous. There's a lot of them. The audiobook is narrated by Marissa Blake. Now, she's a decent narrator. She's, pretty average. She's got great diction and very clear and easy to understand. But she brings up one of my criticisms of narration, of books that are written in English but are not about native English speakers or include non-native English speakers. I find it very frustrating when the narrator character has perfect English when they are in fact not meant to have been growing up in a time where they would be speaking perfect English. I don't need you to tell me as the listener what it would sound like in my voice. I'd rather hear it in the voice of the character that it's written in. So if that means someone has to have a little bit of an accent, that shouldn't happen only when it is on particular words that have to be pronounced properly with an accent. So I didn't really love the crispness of this narration and the cleanliness of it. I felt like it was over-polished, and that's not really that surprising, but I would have rather had a narrator with a little bit of an accent. I also feel like the narration needed to have been a little less formal. The truth is, this felt like this was someone reading a textbook or a formal presentation, and this was supposed to be a kid talking with her friends and her parents. So the dialogue was sort of more formal than I maybe should have been, and that's on Pérez. But I think the narration was also just a little bit too uptight, especially for a book that was with a kid as the main character. Did this book blow my mind? No. It did lead to some interesting discussion at my book club, so that was cool. And I honestly think that most of what we discussed was not necessarily the author's intention, it was more accidental. So kudos to her that it worked out that way, even though I'm not sure that's what she planned. But here's the truth. I really feel like what would have made this book significantly better is if it was a YA novel. It is written at a level and presented at a level that makes much more sense for young people than it does for adults. It's just a little too juvenile for adults. And that's not to say it's not a worthwhile story, because it is. But I just felt the whole time like, why am I reading this book like I am a teenager and trying to learn about the fact that Puerto Rican Americans were not necessarily treated the same as Americans, but it just felt childish. And honestly, it doesn't turn me off from Simon & Schuster's Books Like Us contest going forward, but I feel like if this was the best they got the first year out, they might have needed to do a little more advertising. So for me, this book is a skip it, but maybe you have a different opinion, and who knows? You might love what I hate and hate what I love, so make your own opinion. But thanks for listening to mine. I hope you like and subscribe. See you next time.
Perfect.